Hey guys, it's Tim. This one's going to be the plumbing show. So if you're new to the channel, what I'm doing is I'm building my dream workshop and I'm doing a lot of the work myself. So I figured I'd just document it and show you what all I'm doing. And so either, whether you're planning on building your own or having someone build it for you, like maybe you'll at least come up with some ideas or learn like part of the process. So hopefully it's helpful. So had the concrete guys come and they boxed up the perimeter of where the building is going to be, and yeah, so that's where we're at with that. I needed them to do that so I could locate all the plumbing fixtures. So everything that I know about plumbing I learned within the last 2 weeks, so just let me just say that up front, but I believe this is right. We'll see if it passes the inspection. So anyway, there's a lot of pipes and stuff, and it might look confusing or you might not care what they are, but it's probably easiest just to show you a drawing of what this stuff looks like. And I used an app called Floor Planner. I think Google SketchUp is super awesome if you have the time to learn it. Like, I think that would be the most beneficial, but I got one called Floor Planner that lets you real simple and easy to just get into and start laying things out. So that's what I used, and so once I came up with some basic dimensions of what I wanted to do, then I was able to start like coming up with a plan of how I'm going to plumb this and get it all to drain, and then figure out what the most efficient way to do that is. So there's just a couple things that you need to know about plumbing and how this is all going to work. Of course, before the concrete goes in, I needed to put in all the stuff that's going to go under the slab, right? So what we're doing is it's going to be 4 inches of gravel and then 6 inches of concrete on top of that. So we got our 10-inch boards all around here, and below the boards they're going to come in and they're just going to grade it, so it will just be the regular dirt and stuff that they push around. You can see like over there where they had to kind of dig out a little bit of a trench for those boards to actually sit level. So they'll just move some of that dirt down over towards this corner to get that perfectly level before they start bringing in all the rock and whatnot. And then around the perimeter they'll dig out a I think it's 18 inches deep from like the bottom of here, and then there will be 2 feet wide, and then it kind of gets angled at a 45 like back to like here, so that would be my footer. So it's a monolithic pour. They do it all at once, so they just have it all ready to go. So they'll have rebar and stuff, but that'll be a different episode. We're just talking about the plumbing today, but how to give you an idea of how this is going to work. So right now what we're doing is getting the plumbing, and it's all trenched and dug in, and then once we have the inspection, they come in and they like the layout, all the joints and whatnot. Then they can approve it. I'm gonna I see some rocks have fallen down on this, but my plan is just to have the pipes like kind of encased in sand, so it'll be like softer, so we won't have any like sharp rocks like with a lot of pressure pushing on the pipe. I don't want it to break. So yeah, this is what we got going on. I'll show you the layout of what we're doing so that it just makes more sense, and then we'll just come back here and I'll just walk you through what we're doing.
Alright guys, here's a quick video just to show the layout and the diagram of the plumbing to maybe give you a better idea of what's going on. This is the Floor Planner app I was talking about that lets you, put in your wall thickness and locations and all the dimensions of everything, and then it lets you, put in things like showers and toilets and sinks. So I just took, I think, Microsoft Paint and then drew in some lines for a basic plumbing diagram just so you can kind of see how everything's going to work out. Starting with where the septic line, will connect. This is coming out of the building with the 4-inch pipe, and then it continues with 245s to come up and be the main trunk line between the 2 restrooms. And then also branched in here is a floor drain for this utility room, and vent and a condensation drain. So I figured this would just be a little bit more helpful for some people, just to kind of see a beneficial way to lay it out on paper, just to give yourself an idea of how it's all going to work.
Okay, now that you saw on paper what we're going to do, this is how we executed it. This is going to be the entrance to the bathroom that's accessible from the outside, and this is just for anyone we have a big bonfire out here, or we have someone who wants to camp out here. My mom has a camper, maybe she wants to come here, but it's kind of just nice to have like a real shower and a real bathroom. Even when you're camping, to me it's way more comfortable than the cheap plasticky feeling of most RV setups. Anyway, open the door, you step into the bathroom. This here is the vanity, this here's the toilet, and then this one is for the shower. Now once this concrete is all filled up, and then I have tile on top of it or whatever I do for the flooring, then we'll just cut this off and put a drain on there. That's how that works. Same thing with the toilet or water closet, as it's called in the plumbing world. And then also for the lav, which is also the vanity, and of course all the sinks will be vented to the top, and that's what provides venting. So here's the deal. There's two main plumbing codes to follow. There's the UPC and the IPC. Every region has their own one that they follow, and they all have different requirements. Apparently IPC is a little bit more lenient than the UPC, but every county has their own interpretation of the code. So what works in one county for one inspector might not work for another. So when you post stuff online or ask questions, you might have someone saying that what you're doing is totally wrong. But if you're not talking about the same code, then you might as well not even have a conversation, because it just doesn't apply and it can be so far different. But yeah, so just keep that in mind when you're trying to do some research if you're going to do your own plumbing. Mine happens to be IPC, and hopefully this all passes and it falls within their code. I had a couple plumbers online and on some Facebook groups who said that this should work, and I had a local plumber come by. So we'll get into that, local plumber. So the reason why I decided to do this myself, even though it was my first time and I didn't really know what I'm doing, is the quotes I got from a plumber to do this were $600 for fixture, and that was for like, we get done building, they come in and run the water lines or whatever. Pretty expensive when you have, we'll say I have 10 fixtures here, so I'm only going to spend $6,000, especially when I don't know how soon I'll have the framing up for the bathrooms and stuff. It could be another year or so, and I just didn't want to spend all that money up front on that stuff, if that makes sense. So I figured I would go in, I have to do the stuff that goes under the slab, and then I can wait as long as I want and finish the rest whenever I have time to put walls in. But I've seen a lot of people, they'll run their PEX water lines, and I guess if you know for sure what you're doing and when you're finishing, then that's fine. They'll run the PEX water lines underground. I'm just going to run them in the walls, because that's how I want to do it. And I guess at least if they have an issue later down the road, they're easier to get to. But yeah, we'll just continue real quick. So I showed you the restroom from the outside. Now we'll jump over these ditches and whatnot. And so the restroom that's on the inside of the shop that I'll use, it's the same thing as the one that's on the outside, same exact layout. You'll walk in this way, your vanity will be right here, the toilet will be here, and the shower will be right here. So it's like the mirrored layout. And then the other stuff that we got going on, so there's going to be a door over here somewhere, and this is like the utility room. And well, here's the string line, just to give you an idea. It got buried. This is about where the wall's gonna be, and so the door will be like right here. But I put a floor drain in right here, so this is a utility room. So I'm gonna have a utility sink, a hookup for a washing machine, and then a like condensation drain for any types of HVAC or anything that has condensation that I need to drain. So yeah, this will be for clothes washer, utility sink, the floor drain. And that's just for emergency. So kind of what you need to do if you're going to have a floor drain that is for emergency, that's not going to get used much, is you're going to have to find a way to prime the trap. So they make a trap primer, which is a device that will squirt water into it, like when you use another device, like if you flush a toilet or whatever, and it detects a little bit of change in water pressure, it will just squirt in a small amount of water to keep that trap full. Otherwise, the water that's in the trap will all evaporate out, and then you'll have sewer gases leaking into your building and whatnot. So I did a belt and suspenders method on this. So this one right here is my condensation drain, and if you follow it down, it tees in to the P-trap. So if I have something hooked up that's producing condensation, that's going to help keep that trap full. But I'm also going to have a I don't have it laying here, but my floor drain has, so the floor drain will sit about up this high, with a level with the floor, and it has a fitting in it that will get a 1/2 inch or so PEX line, and I'll have it run down here, and I'll just like run it up this wall so I can hook it up with the like the cold water feed for the utility sink. So we'll just tee into that, and anytime you use the sink or something and it gets that change of pressure, it will squirt water into that trap. What else do we got going on? This is where the water is going to come into the building. So it's just I think I'm just gonna do like a 1-inch PEX line, and then it will come out here, and I'll have it you know, hooked up with like a valve, so I can shut off water to the whole building. And then I'll just run a trench up there and up to the fake rock up there where my well is, and we'll probably run power into this room also in the same trench. So this will be the utility room that has a sink, a fridge, a washer and dryer, and then probably my electric panel and whatnot. So the other thing is with plumbing, you're gonna have to figure out how all your devices are gonna be vented. So basically what happens with a plumbing system is everything needs to have some type of vent somehow. For instance, here's what happens. You take a big poop and you flush it. All the water comes rushing down, say like past this junction here. What that's going to do is it's going to create a vacuum, and it's going to want to pull on this system here. So there's a P-trap right here, so this goes underground. And that's just, like I said, it's just water that, you know, keeps the sewer gases from being able to come back out from the sewer. Well, if you don't have that vented, it's just going to pull that water and suck it right down with it. So that's what this line is here. So he's an air vent, and he'll go up and he'll just tie in with the rest of the ventilation system, and there will be like a stack that goes through the ceiling that just vents all that stuff. But yeah, so now whenever your poop comes flying by, it's going to create a vacuum, right? But it's just going to pull air through this vent right here. The air is just going to come in through there to go with it. So every other device has to have a vent. So like this is for the washing machine. So there would be like you would tee off of this and have a P-trap, right? And then you would have this tied into the ventilation system on the top. Same thing with this sink. He gets tied into a vent on top. The shower is vented through this vent here, right? The shower is vented that way. So this is a stack that goes for the upstairs use. So if I ever decide to finish off the loft up top and put a living quarters with a master bathroom and put a kitchen or something upstairs, I'll have that. So on and so forth. This is my test pipe, right? So the requirement is a 10-foot tall, 2-inch pipe. So you fill that with water, and then you just make sure that it doesn't leak down. So I filled it like 15 minutes ago. Let me just walk up here and see where we're at. Okay, so he's leaked down about 1/2 inch in 15 minutes. Now where he's leaking is, I found the leak, and it's right here by the floor drain. This cap right here is leaking. See that bunch of that guy pouring down? That's my only leak that I can see. But it's pretty much enough to make it drop that much in that amount of time. So anyway, I'll just give you a couple quick plumbing tips, just from the stuff that I found out, researching it and learning in the few weeks. One is your fittings, okay? Anything that is horizontal, right? You have to use 45s, like this. That's a 45. That's a 45. Or a combination, which is a 45. So this is like a long sweep 90, or it's a Y, which is a 45 with another 45 on it. It just really depends on what you call it. And then again, we'll show you. So like this is for the toilets, right? So this is a Y with a 45. I didn't do a 90 because I needed the toilet to be shifted this way a little bit more. So that's why these pieces added up. Now the toilet on the other side, I was just able to do that combo, which is a 90, and put the toilet where I needed it. So again, this is for a shower. So it's a Y with a 45. Okay, so that's what you want to do on that. You don't want to use sanitary tees on a horizontal pipe. And a sanitary tee is something like that guy. I don't know if you can see him right there. Okay, so those only go on vertical pipes. Okay, just something I learned. Look at all that water leaking. That's the second cap I tried. I wonder if like the inside of the pipe has an abrasion that just isn't sealing well. Not too worried about it. Whenever I glue up the next fitting, it will fit up well. The other thing, 4-inch for the main. Just do 4 inches, even if you can get away with 3 because you're only using so many fixtures, and you're allowed to do 3. Just do 4. It doesn't cost much more money. It's less likely to clog, and it just flows better. Next thing, when you're going through the concrete, you're gonna run like a 6-inch pipe over 4-inch, so the concrete won't touch the main pipe. That would just give it a little bit of room for if the concrete and the pipe expand and contract at different rates, you don't crack your pipe. Okay, does that make sense? Let me see what else. Slopeage. So what you want is a 1/4 inch per foot, or 1 inch per foot for 4 feet. That's what you want your slope to be, pretty much at a minimum. I think you're actually allowed an 1/8 slope on 4-inch or 3-inch pipe. Don't quote me on this. I just did 1/4 inch because that seemed right. Then you don't want to go too much slope, because then you can run into problems where your water will flow faster than your solids, and then your solids will just stop because it won't have any water to ride on, if that makes sense. So that would be 1/2 inch slope or so, where you might start getting into problems with that, I'm guessing. I don't really know what that number is, but just remember not to do too much slope, like within reason, 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, in that range. So let's go with layout. I'll just give you an idea of how I did this. And I didn't really see much online about laying stuff out and lining it up. So you can see I dug out a lot of stuff here. I didn't have to dig out that much. I kind of changed my plan in the middle of things and decided to go with this layout where it was simple. But in order to like identify my markings, I ran the string down the center of where my wall was going to be for the bathrooms. And then I would go and measure off that string and leave these ones and like just slide them. Obviously, since these vertical stubs are in the way, it's got everything pushed off to the side. I'm done using the strings now, so they're kind of just hanging out. But I would basically just tie little strings and have them float down on the pipe where like this fitting would go and where the next one would go, just so I could line everything up and keep the measurements, you know, everything in the right area. And then I did the same thing like this way. I ran just a piece of rebar over there to hold a string and lined up, because there's a wall right here for this room. So just a little tip of how I did that. I've seen some people run 2 lines to represent each side of the walls. So if that, you know, works for you, then do it that way. But yeah, basically that's how it's laid out. I'll give you one more tip. Whenever you glue it up, follow the instructions, read them 3 times, and really learn how to do the glue. You don't want to mess up that state, because then you might end up with leaks, but the leaks might not be super evident where they are, especially when the pipe is like this, laying down in sand and it's rained and the pipes are all wet and there's water beaded up on them, and you can't really tell on the seams, like, okay, is that just water or is it leaking? In the ground, like, it's all wet, so you don't know if it's leaking from a joint or not. So the best thing to do is not have any leaks, so you don't have to try and troubleshoot it, because trust me, you might end up scrapping the whole thing and doing it all over again, because it's not very easy to pull these things apart. You can disconnect 1 or 2 fittings if you have to do that. You can search how to do that, but I used a hole saw and a torch and was able to like cook out a fitting or 2 when I had a leak. But yeah, just read all the instructions. And then, so when you're using the 4-inch pipe, make sure your brush is big enough. Use the big can, because it comes with a big brush. If you try and use the little can of cement, the brush is really small and you just won't get enough on there. So you want to make sure that you use your primer, get both the male and female sides with primer, make sure the primer's still wet. Then you take the brush, you do the male side, you do the female side, and then you go back to the male side and you get them. You want glue to be pushed out a little bit and see it like in the seams. Maybe this one's a bit aggressive, but you should see glue pushed out on the seam. You want to make sure you do both sides, because you got to remember, like, when you're pushing the male side into the female side and the glue pushes out this way, you want to make sure the inside of this is glued too, so that you have some glue that stays in as you're pushing it that way, if that makes sense. So when you're working with the big pipe, make sure you're using the big can that has the big brush. Yeah, and then a couple other things I did. I just pounded in some rebar into the ground here just to locate everything, so that made it so it wouldn't move around. And make sure you have a good level that has the bubble marks. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is the level I picked up. So Empire level at Home Depot. Lowe's didn't have very many levels, so that had a slope or pitch measurement. So you can see right here, you have these measurements if you look at the top. So you have, right, 0, 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, 1/2 inch, right? So the idea is that you set it on there. So that's closer to 3/8 than a quarter, but you know, when you're doing this stuff, sometimes it moves around. It's more like 3/8. So there's 1/8, and then you know sometimes like that gets moved just because it has water on it, so you can shove some more dirt under there and get that to sit higher so it has a little bit more flow. But yeah, to make sure you have good tools for the job, something like this with these markers really help. And then this one is like billet, and it just feels good. I really like using it. It's got magnets on it, so it's a nice little level for 20 bucks. Make sure you have one of these. Guys, I think that's about it for right now. I got to get going. I think, you know, I tried to give you as much information as I could that I think is like beneficial, that everyone would need to know how to do their own plumbing. Of course, I mean, that kind of just scratches the surface of all the research I did. Kind of feel like I had to learn a new career in 2 weeks. Okay guys, quick update. We just had the inspector here, and yeah, we passed the plumbing inspection, so heck yeah. So I was sitting inside the RV doing some you know, work on the computer and stuff, and didn't even hear the inspector pull up. So by the time she called me to say she was here, I think she was pretty much done looking at everything. So I don't know really what all she checked, if she even climbed on the ladder to see if there, you know, was still water in there, or if she checked the level on all this stuff. But yeah, she just said it was a very pretty job, is how she described it. So I'll take that as a compliment. This is very good news, because that means we can now have the concrete guys come and finish up their work. So I will have to fill in this stuff and make sure I have it just all how I want it. So like I said, I'm going to have everything covered in sand, just so there's no sharp rocks sitting against the piping. And then I'm going to you know, fill in all this dirt on top of the sand. Then the concrete guys will come in and they'll do some grading. They'll dig out my footer. Things are looking good. We're making progress. We just got to hope for some nice weather so they can come in and get it knocked out.